We begin tonight with Ukrainian propaganda coming at us from all directions. For all of you, it is hard to decipher what is real and what is not. So I urge you to simply use your critical thinking skills here, okay, people? The propaganda ranges from this is somehow a fake war to the wild claim that Vladimir Putin is working on behalf of America, rooting out the deep state. All of that is ludicrous, designed to garner likes and clicks while sending all of you into a frenzy. First and foremost, Putin hates America. He is not going to risk his political career, his billions of dollars, his power, trying to help us, trying to help America. Please, let's get real. So let's go through some truths in all of this. Here's the real truth. Innocent civilians are being slaughtered in Ukraine. Babies are being born in subway stations. Women and children are fleeing the violence to other countries while brothers and fathers are being left behind to fight, and fight bravely they are. This is happening. And anyone who supports Putin or supported him in the past should be ashamed of themselves. Just listen to Ukrainian-born U.S. Congresswoman Victoria Spartz spelling out Putin's violent attack and the toll that it is taking.
This is not a war. This is a genocide of the Ukrainian people by a crazy man who cannot get over that Ukrainian people do not want socialism, Soviet Union, communism, and this president need to get this act together and exercise some leadership. What's happening under his watch is atrocity. What he's doing to this country and to the world is unforgivable.
Joe Biden has ruined not just this country, but the world as well. We will get it back, though, that I promise you, all of it. So the media is hailing Ukrainian President Zelensky as a hero. And I will say that his strength and his resolve to fight the Russians is 100% impressive. But that doesn't mean he and the Ukrainian government aren't corrupt. Look, former Soviet bloc countries are all ripe with corruption. Ukraine is no different. It is quite literally everywhere in Ukraine. 4 months ago, a group of international investigative journalists released what's known as the Pandora Papers, leaked documents tying many world leaders to a web of intricate offshore money laundering schemes. Well, the self-described anti-oligarch Zelensky happened to be all over those documents, exposed for participating in a sprawling network of offshore companies. One company, the journalists revealed, that Zelensky secretly transferred to a friend just weeks before winning his election. It is Zelensky acting like the very corruption-plagued oligarchs he promised to root out. I guess that doesn't take away from him fighting now today, though, fighting like the Dickens. So listen to me. None of this either takes away from Vladimir Putin being an evil tyrant willing to kill innocent civilians. Putin will stop at nothing to get what he wants, the old Soviet Union back intact, and he will unleash hell to do it. We're watching that, which is why it's not an either-or scenario, either-or. Vladimir is good, Zelensky is bad, or the other way around. What it's really about now is the Ukrainian people and the safety and security of the world. Of course, the Ukrainian people have a right to exist as well. There is no way anyone in America should back Vladimir Putin. Humanity, compassion, our duty to help those in need means Joe Biden should be doing more in the way of tough sanctions, and we certainly shouldn't be still buying oil from Russia, from our enemies. It's insanity. And lastly, when you talk about corruption running deep in Ukraine, it all runs back straight to the Democrats here in America. That's why Joe Biden and his family benefit from Russia taking control of Ukraine. Look, Hunter Biden's multi-million-dollar payouts from Ukrainian companies like that infamous Burisma, the natural gas company, certainly smells of influence peddling. Smells of them trying to play that game, doesn't it? The Biden, Obama, and even George Soros corruption allegations from inside Ukraine have never fully been investigated. And they never will if Russia wins this war. Joe Biden knows that. So let's go through this step by step. In 2016, Hunter and his Burisma buddies, like Devin Archer, a man just sentenced on unrelated fraud charges, were securing meetings between Burisma company under investigation in Ukraine, and high-ranking Obama-Biden cabinet members. In 2016, Archer got Burisma a meeting with then Secretary of State John Kerry. You better believe Hunter Biden helped arrange that. A week earlier, Undersecretary of State Catherine Novelli took a meeting with Burisma to also discuss how the administration can help end the corruption probe into Hunter's Burisma. Shortly thereafter, Joe Biden gets on the phone with the Ukrainian president and offered this demand. Here he is in his own words.
I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired.
He brags about a bribe on camera, and President Trump's the one that gets impeached over trying to root out corruption. So after that, you know what happened. The prosecutor is promptly fired. And whatever happens next here is even more stunning. Listen to this. A senior U.S. official at the American embassy, right after that phone call you just heard Joe Biden talk about, this embassy official in Ukraine writes a letter to the Ukrainian General Prosecutor's Office requesting it halt its investigation, another one, into a George Soros-funded group. You ready for the name of this group? The Anti-Corruption Action Center. The U.S. government paid that group, Soros-funded, to investigate the Ukrainian investigators looking into none other than Hunter Biden's Burisma. You see how all this stuff is connected? It's a web of lies. It is the epitome of the George Soros wolf watching over other wolves, the Biden family, raid the Ukrainian henhouse. The fact is, the corruption inside Ukraine can be directly connected back to the Obama-Biden administration as far back as 2014. And if Ukraine President Zelensky wanted help from the United States before the Russian invasion, which he did, all he would have to do is threaten a compromised Joe Biden that another investigation was being opened. Did that happen? That's the question. But instead of Joe Biden using that as motivation to protect Ukraine, shut the investigation down, we'll protect you, he doesn't do that to save the Biden family rump. Instead, it is certainly plausible that Joe Biden would simply go weak and let Ukraine fall to Russia, saving his own family's hide. How else do you explain his weakness?